We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. MashaAllah, over the last couple of episodes, we'll be talking about the pilgrimage of Hajj. Unfortunately, not everyone will be able to go this year, but inshallah, we do wish those that will be going, especially those natives and those local to Mecca, inshallah, we wish them the blessings, and we also wish them a safe and healthy Hajj, inshallah. Let us continue our discussion. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me as always is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhana.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
MashaAllah. Shaykhana, my first question is in regards to the new developments that we have in Mecca. Now, as you know, those who go regularly, they'll know that there's always a new building or a new development or even a new area that's made. Sometimes there's new districts, and one of them is known as Azizia. Are we allowed to use these new districts to put on the Haram? Or must we go to, for example, the old Haram boundaries and so forth?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. You are allowed to wear your ihram and sit from the old or even the new area of the Mecca as known, Mecca al-Jadida, and to wear the ihram and make the niyyah from there if you want to go to, let's say, start Arafah and the other Hajj rituals, the grand Hajj rituals.
So it's not for when you're coming to do like Umrah Tamattu or to do Tawaf, those are from the outskirts, the specific areas to put the ihram for that.
Yes, if you want to do extra Umrah after the Amal of Hajj, let's say after 7-8 days of from the Arafah days and the Amal of Hajj, you want to do extra Umrah. You go on the outskirts of Mecca, there's a place called, I think, Tan'im. You go there, you wear your ihram, you make the niyyah and you come back to inside Mecca for the Umrah itself, which is just I think Tawaf, Salah of the Tawaf, Sa'i and Taqsir, I think at the end in overall. So just a basic Umrah.
Yes.
Basically. So yeah, you have to go out on the outside or on outskirts of Mecca in Tan'im, for example, and you initiate your Ahkam from there, Ihram from there. But for the Hajj A'mal, for the grand Hajj A'mal, Arafah, Muzdalifah, Mina, you have to start from inside Mecca. So whether it's to the old or the new Mecca, that should be fine.
I see. Ahsant, excellent. Sheikh, let's say someone's gone on Hajj and this is their first Hajj. They've gone and they've performed all the rituals and so forth, and you know they come back home, and maybe they feel that, oh, you know what, the following year Hajj is coming. Let me go ihtiyat just in case I missed something out, or you know, I did something to void my Hajj. What niyyah does that person then use to go into Hajj? Because the first one was his wajib Hajj, but he's not sure if it was void or not. So he's going for a second time as ihtiyat. Is this Hajj also wajib with the niyyah, or is it mustahab niyyah? How does one create the intention for this Hajj?
We've seen this when we're on Hajj, for example. Some people would come back the following year after their first initial Hajjat al-Islam wajib Hajj. They don't feel that comfortable that they did the Amal perfectly, you know, or I think I did something wrong in my Tawaf or in my Sa'i or in Mina, I don't know how many stones I threw, for example. They become in doubts in terms of the Amal, so they try to do it again next year, as you said, as a precaution, as a ihtiyat. Yes, when they come next year, they do it with the intention of ihtiyat and do the Amal again. But as I've said, if they're not sure, inshallah, the Amal would be accepted. I mean, unless you're sure about it, that you haven't, let's say, been in Arafat for some reason, you couldn't reach Arafat. You're sure that you haven't done these Amal, then of course things will be different. But if you're in doubt, inshallah, would consider as you've done the a'mal. Sometimes we come back home and think, oh, did I throw 5 stones or 7 stones? Inshallah, the a'mal will be accepted. But if one wishes to repeat it, then repeat with the niyyah of ihtiyat.
Excellent. Just a quick reminder to all of you is that this is a live show. We do take in your questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, send it via the WhatsApp, send it via the email address, which is Ahkam, SOS at imamhussein.tv. Alternatively, give us a phone call here in the studio, and inshallah, me and the Sheikh will be more than happy to discuss your question. Speaking of questions, Sheikh, now I've got one in from the email. Assalamu alaikum, great show as always. I entered the city of Jeddah where there is no miqat, and I declared and assumed ihram there without the niyyah of nadhr. Being ignorant of the particular ruling in this case, and I entered the holy city of Mecca during the day, covering my head. In this case, is the umrah considered void? And I do not have to give the kafara for covering my head, or is the umrah considered valid? Am I only obliged to give kafara?
Basically, the umrah is valid, inshallah. There's no issue with it as long as you wear the ihram, and of course you were ignorant in terms of making the nadhr, because there was no miqat around that area. But in overall, because of covering the one's head when they are in ihram, they have to give kafara in this case. As I've said, if men cover their head, then they have to actually give kafara for this covering while they're in ihram.
I see. Interesting. Shaykhna, what is the ruling in regards to using perfume soap before putting on the ihram? So either in the morning I used perfume soap, or during the ghusl that you do before putting on the ihram, I used perfume soap. Is that okay to use, or does that invalidate the ihram state?
Well, as a mustahab precaution, using perfumed soap is not shouldn't be used in overall. It's not wajib, but it's mustahab precaution that one should avoid using soaps which has scent and perfume scents. We've been recommended to use, for example, the ones made from olive oil, special soaps, has no scent or smell as a perfume. Using perfumes without any perfumes, soaps in this regard. But as I've said, it's just mustahab precaution.
Sheikh, what about wearing perfume soap, or using perfume soap, or wearing perfume before declaring the state of ihram? By not more than an hour or so.
Again, for using the perfumed soap as a mustahab precaution to avoid it before the ihram, even because that smell will remain for a few hours, let's say, after the ihram. So as a mustahab precaution to avoid using the perfumed soap again.
Excellent. Sheikh, for the sisters that are going for Hajj, is it okay for them to wear the abaya on top of the ihram?
Yes, it is permissible as long as they are wearing the actual ihram, those two pieces of garments of ihram, then the abaya should be fine.
And Sheikh, got a question here that's coming from the WhatsApp, just bear with me. And it is, what is the ruling of wearing socks that cover the surface of the foot? This concerned the lady who thought it was permissible and performed the Hajj rites on that basis.
For the sisters, they can wear socks, that's fine, there's no issue with it. But as a mustahab precaution, if they can remove the top part of the socks, in which the top feet is been revealed and shown. So if they can, actually, it's mustahab precaution to remove the top part of the socks of their feet, to show and expose the feet. And they can cover the rest, that's fine.
Okay.
But in overall, they are allowed to wear socks, even without removing the top part.
Difficult. Sheikh, what about when, I'm sure, when you go back home to Iraq, it's very similar. It's definitely the same in Pakistan, where if you go out on the street, sometimes there's very, very old cars, and the exhaust and the smoke and the fumes that come out is really, really horrific at times. For those who are in the state of Haram, is it okay for them to cover their mouths with the Ihram, with the cloth that they have on them, in order to stop these particles going down their throat and so forth, in a form of protection?
Yes, it is permissible for them to actually block their nose to prevent from the effects of the pollution, air pollution, due to the cars and so forth. They are allowed in this situation to cover.
Shaykhna, Yawm al-Arafah is a very, very special and important day, and I believe it is Imam Sadiq alayhi salam who narrates that if you cannot be in the deserts of Arafah, then go to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and it is as if you won't miss out on the ajr and on the thawab. So if an individual makes another that this year I'm going to go to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam for Yawm al-Arafah, but then this person becomes a mustati and needs to go is technically he has to perform Hajj now. So what does he do? Does he go and perform the Hajj, or does he complete the nidhr that he made? Now I do believe that the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani Hafadullah, he has a fatwa on this. He mentions this. What does the Sayyid have to say?
The Sayyid mentions that the Hajj becomes obligatory because it's wajib Hajj, Hajjatul Islam. He's now mustati'. This is an obligatory act. But at the same time, because this wajib has the priority over the nadhr becomes annulled. So he needs to forget and ignore the nadhr, and the Hajj wajib will be replaced instead, and to do the actual obligatory Hajj performance.
I see. Excellent. Shaykhna, is it permissible for a Muslim to seek shelter from the shade, from the heat and from the sun, especially in a roofed vehicle, moving vehicle?
We've mentioned this before. A muhrim, he's not allowed to cover his head or to shelter in a moving vehicle. And that's why you see sometimes Hujjaj, they sit on top of the cars, just to avoid being inside the car itself or the vehicle itself. But they can actually go into the buildings, tents, for example, fixed places, fixed accommodations, let's say, and stay and sleep there. But moving vehicles, they're not allowed to cover themselves in terms of inside the cars and so forth, because it's going to be like a kafara in this case. Indeed. They have to sacrifice a sheep. If they do so, they have to give a kafara. It depends on the marji' in terms of this kafara. Some might say that there's no kafara for it. So you have to see which marji' you follow when you go there. Do you really need to give kafara? Otherwise, but it's always to stay in the safe side that the one avoids covering himself and sheltering under a let's say a car or such like.
Indeed. Shaykhna, I've got another question here from the WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. My question is, I am planning to go Hajj, but I don't know the Ahkam of Hajj. So what shall I do? You could start by watching Ahkam SOS. And inshallah, the Shaykh have been going through all the Ahkam in regards to Hajj. But Shaykh, for those who actually aren't familiar with the Ahkam of Hajj, maybe they need some revision or so forth. What is one to do?
Let's say if you go by yourself in somehow, or with a friend, for example, without going with a group, in which they have a preacher, they have a mulana, they have guiders in Hajj and so forth. You have to make sure that you learn these ahkam. As wajib ahkam, you have to learn them. You have to make sure that when you go there, you know how to put and wear the ihram, and then the a'mal, step by step, where to go and what to do, for example. What is first in the sequence of the a'mal in Mecca and in Arafat, in Mina, and so forth. But always recommended that to go with a group or with a guide, so they can actually guide you step by step. And that's, of course, the safe side. Although it's the most expensive option, but it's worth it. I mean, to go with a group, from A to Z, they will teach you everything what to do. And there's the Maulana or Alim who will answer your questions
Yes.
in regard to the
And also there's plenty of reading material available. Especially the book I was reading was from the late Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi. He has a book in regards to Hajj rites. But I'm sure there's plenty of ulama out there that do discuss the different ahkam doing Hajj and prepare you properly for this pilgrimage. Inshallah, we're going for a short break. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Imam Hussein TV. Join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Just a quick reminder to all of you is that this is a live show and we do take in your questions. If you have a question, and it can be on any topic, there's no topic too silly or too taboo. If you have a question you'd like to ask, we don't need to know your name or where you're asking from. Send in your questions via the WhatsApp, email address, or alternatively give us a phone call and inshallah we'll be able to answer your call and discuss your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Shaykhna, let's continue our discussion on Ahkam and we've got miscellaneous questions to ask, and we've got one that's coming via the WhatsApp, and that is, if business partners have not discussed the share of the profit, then what is to be done and how should they divide the profits between them?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The profits and the losses between the two partners, if they were equal, so let's say each invested £1,000,
Okay.
1,000, then the profits and losses also to be equal according to the amount they have invested. So whatever is the loss or the profit is divided into half between them. But if one party invested more, so one invested 1,000, one invested 3,000, then the loss and the profit is according to the capital's ratio. So it depends on how much you've invested. The more you invest, the more you gain profit, and so forth. Let me mention a hadith with regard to trade and business and work. عن علي عليه السلام, from Imam Amir al-Mu'minin سلام الله عليه, he says, تعرضوا للتجارات, that expose yourself to trade, to business. فإن لكم فيها غنى عما في أيدي الناس, in which you will gain the profits, the means, the income, rather than going and asking people what is in their hands. So you will fulfill and sustain yourself. You don't need to go back to people to beg them, to borrow them every time. You will be fulfilled with your own income and profits. وإن الله عز وجل يحب المحترف الأمين. Allah Azza wa Jal, He loves the one and He likes the one who is talented and trustworthy. Two important features in business and trade. To know your expertise and the profession well, so you don't lose every time, you don't destroy and ruin your business every time. And number two, to be trustworthy. In haram, halal, you make sure you gain halal means of wealth and business. As in the Quran mentions about this aspect in Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 26, when Musa alayhi salam went to Shu'aib, the Prophet Shu'aib,
yes.
and he met the two girls of Shu'aib who were next to a well. In a long story, one of the girls come forward and she says to her father that, let's hire this individual, Musa alayhi salam.
Yes.
He's strong. So she says to her father, إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين, that to hire somebody who is strong and trustworthy, because Musa alayhi salam, he went and took water from the well for the two girls, for the family of Shu'aib, because Shu'aib was quite old, he couldn't come by himself. Yes. And take water from the well, but Musa alayhi salam managed to do it himself. So she recommended that if we hire this individual, and it was actually a marriage proposal as well, to hire him and to actually he is strong and also trustworthy. So important to be in this position at work, that the one to be talented, strong in his field, knowledgeable, and to be trustworthy to know the halal, to know the haram. Make sure that you don't fall into the haram trade and haram business, and of course حقوق الناس, the haq of the people is very important to be also considered, that you give back to the people whatever you've borrowed or taken. That's important.
Excellent. Sheikh, when it comes to business and trading, and let's say someone was to purchase an item, and then obviously they mark up the price and they sell it for more. Now, if this item is in big demand, and sometimes people will put up the prices a lot higher, and is it okay for the individual to buy something cheap, and let's say they buy something, and because of demand, they put the prices a lot higher than normal, and then they say, oh, it's of the expensive type, that's why the price is high. I mean, it's understandable the price is high because of the demand, but then to say that it is of the expensive type, is this halal income?
Well, if this was considered as cheating and defrauding, then of course it's not permissible. Sometimes, I mean, that's fine if you tell them this is a cheap product, but we sell it expensive because of the demand. Mm-hmm. There's a high demand and less supply because yes, manufacturing are not really catching up with the demands. Mm-hmm. So, but we're gonna increase the prices. But to replace the issue with the high quality product, and of course that's a cheating. That's not allowed. You have to tell your customers exactly what you are selling, expensive or cheap. You have to tell them the reality about this product. Let me also mention a hadith about trade again. عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام إمام الصادق سلام الله عليه. He mentions that إن 19 الرزق في التجارة, that 9 out of 10 of the rizq, of the sustenance, is by the trade, by business. So 9 out of 10 of your income is through the business and trade. Very important for the one be able to trade, if they have knowledge of trade, how to sell, how to buy, to put the profits and to calculate the losses and so forth. Another hadith, التجارة تزيد في العقل. Trading will increase your aql and your intellect, as if you're actually dealing with people, calculating, buying, you learn new tactics, talents and so forth. That will actually increase your aql and intellect. Be able to maybe become a millionaire one day, for example. This is how it worked, step by step. So also makes your aql and intellect more feasible and working, rather than just be idle and sitting at home and doing nothing at all.
Shaykh, you mentioned, like being fraudulent and conning people and so forth. Here in the West, it is mandatory, especially in our country, in UK and in London, it is mandatory to have car insurance. Now, if an individual doesn't have car insurance, gets involved in an accident, is he allowed to, in a way, lie to the insurance company or switch cars that, maybe there's a car that is insured and switch the details and so forth in order to get the money to, obviously repay for the damages and so forth? I believe the late Ayatollah Al-Udhma Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, rahmatullah alayh, I believe he discusses this. What does he say?
Well, it's very clear that deception is not permissible at all. And the one who caused damage or actually didn't tell the reality to the insurance company, for example, or whoever, is to actually take the responsibility of paying back the damages. Otherwise, they will take it in the day of judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah. So you have to make sure that you tell the truth, or you pay back whatever is the damages caused by this accident, without any deception, without any lying and cheating. Let me read a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regard to cheating and deception. He says, "Ala wa man ghashana falaysa minna." The one who cheats us, deceives us, he's not part of us and amongst us. He said it 3 times. "Ala man ghashana falaysa minna, ala man ghashana falaysa minna." 3 times. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Wa man ghasha akhahu al-muslim نزع الله بركة رزقه وأفسد عليه معيشته وَوَكَّلَهُ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ. The one who deceives a Muslim brother, Allah will take away from him the barakah and the blessings in his sustenance and rizq. You see him every time in the courts, la samahullah, paying penalties, maybe spent a few weeks in the jail, for example, behind the bars, problems, maybe family issues, losing his money, and so forth. وَأَفْسَدَ عَلَيْهِ مَعِيشَتُهُ. His life would be ruined, maybe family breakup, I don't know, divorce, na'udhu billah. That's all because of the deception and lying and cheating. وَوَكَّلَهُ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ. Allah will leave him to himself. خلاص, you do, depend on yourself. So important for especially the believers in a non-Muslim country to respect these laws and avoid deceiving others in this matter.
Shaykhna, you mentioned trade and you're saying that it's the 9/10 of rizq. And there's many laws and many ahkam to do with trading, and inshallah we'll get to have an episode specifically on trade. But when it comes to trading of fish, now some fish is not acceptable and not prohibited for us to eat. For example, fishes without scales, lobsters, crabs, shark, eel, the list goes on, oysters. Are we still allowed to sell them to maybe people who do not follow the Jafri fiqh, or to non-believers, non-Muslims? Are we allowed to sell these fishes to them?
When we said that previously, that it's not allowed for the one to eat these type of fish from the Shia of Ahlul Bayt, but if it's to do with selling them to the non-Muslims or non-Shia, those who they call them in Arabic mustahli, they consider it as halal in their faith, in their religion, in their creed, then it is permissible for them to have it. You can't sell it to them. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That's just fish only though.
Exactly. For them it's halal. But for us it's haram to serve or eat between each other. I can't sell it to you, the crabs or the squid and so forth, because it's haram. But for others they can sell, who are not Muslims, who are not from the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, who consider it as haram in their fiqh, in their aqidah. Of course, we had exceptions, we mentioned this, except with regard to the pork meat and alcohol. You're not allowed even to serve it to a non-Muslim who consider as halal in his own faith and creed and religion. You can't serve pork and alcohol at all.
Shaykhna, is it permissible to perform medical experiments on human beings?
As long as there's no harm, extensive harm on this individual, it should be fine with their permission. Of course, that's important. Otherwise, if there's a harm, extreme harm, and without their permission, it's not allowed.
I see. It is a dangerous business, considering because obviously I came from a medical field, and when it comes to medicine, there's a lot of experiments that's done on patients, on new drugs and new medicines to see if they can actually help tackle and help heal people. And sometimes they go, they're very successful, and sometimes, unfortunately, there's side effects and so forth. So it's a very, very dangerous. I wouldn't say dangerous, but you have to be very, very cautious when it comes to medical testing. Shaykhna, my final question, and it could be quite an interesting one, inshallah, is perfume. Is it, because as we know, to smell good, it was encouraged by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. And mashallah, you always see the one guy doing, in the mosque, doing Jama'ah prayer and stuff with that, and he's wiping it on everyone. But for our sisters out there, is it permissible for them to wear perfume to leave the house? Well, not to leave the house, but wear perfume and then leave the house.
In overall, it is discouraged or makruh for the sisters to wear perfume and go out in public, in which people can smell by passing by near them and smell their nice scent. Unless it becomes the cause of temptation or corruption, and it becomes haram. Sometimes I wear perfume to go and attract others to myself, to look nice. And the same applies to makeup. I wear makeup to attract others to myself, male or female. So when it comes to the act of or the intention of temptation and and lust and so forth, it becomes haram. In overall, they can do so, but not for the cause of attracting others, not for the cause of an intention of temptation, na'udhu billah. To be a pure intention, but as I've said, the Sayyid mentions that it's discouraged and makruh to do this act.
So sisters, wear perfume but not too much. Yes?
Yes, let me just mention this hadith from Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam.
Inshallah.
He says, أَيَّمُ امْرَأَةٍ تَطَيَّبَتْ لِغَيْرِ زَوْجِهَا. If a woman wears perfume not for her husband, for others. Let's say she wears perfume to attract men outside in the street, or to attract men at work, her colleagues, for example. The intention is to attract others. The intention is actually not for her husband, but for others outside. لم تقبل منها صلاة حتى تغتسل من طيبها. Her salah, her prayers would not be accepted unless she goes and she do ghusl to purify her from this sin. Because the intention was what? For others. So when it's for others, of course the intention would be evil and would be, of course, towards the haram.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Shaykhna. Thank you for all those who joined us today. Inshallah, Ahkam SOS will be back on Wednesday. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them and forward them to the WhatsApp. The email address, ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv. Or alternatively, give us a phone call here live in the studio, and inshallah, me and the Shaykh will be able to discuss your questions. Inshallah, see you on Wednesday, 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.